Good evening, everybody. Mike Naso here from IPR365.com with the latest on the tropics. And we do have a serious hurricane in the making out there today, taking a look at the entire Atlantic Basin. An area that obviously comes into view is right here in the central Atlantic. A new tropical depression has been born, and it is forecast to continue basically on towards the west-northwest with an eventual bend to the northwest, and it could get near major hurricane strength in just a few short days. But a Cape Verde hurricane, the first of the year, does appear to be in the making with this. Now here's the latest on TD6 as of 5 p.m. Eastern. It was at 11.0 north, 32.1 west. Winds were 30 miles an hour, gusting to 40. It could become a tropical storm later tonight or tomorrow. When it does become one, which it will be named Tropical Storm Danielle. And Danielle is expected to basically move the way it is moving right now, west-northwest at 9, and then become a hurricane by Monday evening. So not really that far away. And then by the time Thursday comes around, be very close to major hurricane intensity, perhaps a lot stronger than 110 miles an hour, although right now that is the forecast, and continue that northwest motion. From there, it could very well be turning out to sea, so that would be good news. Of course, if it does take more of a western edge of this track, it could get a lot closer to the islands to bring higher swells and be much more of a threat to Bermuda down the line. And you always have to worry about systems getting trapped under a rebuilding ridge and moving further west, but right now that doesn't appear too likely. 1,008 millibars on the central pressure. And again, the track forecast for this is pretty straightforward. You could see here, generally west-northwest. Note, though, the current motion is this right here, this blue line. The red line here is the National Hurricane Center track, which takes it like that, close to the consensus. But note that most of the models here are initializing it way too far to the north and east. And so that's why if you take these models and keep them the same but kind of move them with the current motion, it could get a lot further west than a turn at 53, rather a turn at 63. So we're going to watch that because that can make a heck of a lot of difference for a place like Bermuda and also for the extreme northern islands, not just for direct landfall, but the threat of high swells, no doubt. Now here's the latest satellite as the sun goes down on the RGB image, and taking a look right there is the center. You can clearly see this is organizing. Reminds me a lot of Bill last year. Remember how Bill kind of had that constant flow and it couldn't really separate itself from the ITCZ, but it eventually did, and it became a hurricane of Category 4 intensity, and I would not rule out this one getting even as strong as that. I think conditions will be quite favorable. Actually, if you do look at the wind shear, right now it's probably under the most wind shear it's going to be under at least for several days. But look at all this black and blue here. Whenever you see that on the shear chart here, that means very favorable conditions. So this system should have no problem intensifying into a very dangerous hurricane. We also have a developing system that could be a hurricane in the Pacific sitting right here, and I did want to note that it has low wind shear. I'll show you that in just a little bit. Now again, here's the Canadian model, and you can see it does bring our system to the north and brings a second system behind it, probably even stronger based on the resolution than the first system. And even though it does show an apparent weakness right here, the ridging would likely start to rebuild. So this second one here could end up being more of a west runner than what will be Danielle. And by the way, if we did have a second system after Danielle, it would be Earl. So we're going to be getting down the name list here a little bit more than usual the next few days. We also have the GFDL model making this a very powerful hurricane. Very Category 2 intensity based on this model, not quite a major hurricane. Same goes for the H-WRF taking up towards Cat 2 intensity. Actually only up just to a strong Cat 1 on the latest 18Z run. And finally, the GFS does make this a powerful hurricane. In fact, on the vorticity, look there, you can almost see an eye coming into view based on that map. If you look closely enough, you can see it does show a hurricane shape, no doubt, a very dangerous hurricane out there with a second system behind it taking more of a northwest course, and you can see that even better as the two systems move in sync, and one end up turned to the north, the other end up turned to the northwest. That's the way it goes on the GFS model. Again, the central Atlantic tonight, you can see there's our developing tropical cyclone, and centers right about here at 11 north, and keep in mind that is still just north of the South American coast, to give you some idea how far south it is. And that means that it does have to gain latitude before it really gets caught up in the steering flow. And as of right now, the models have initialized it too far north. But again, a track like the Hurricane Center shows, showing this system moving west-northwest, then gradually a turn to the northwest, that's very likely at this point, with a dangerous, large, powerful major hurricane throughout all this time. Not out of the realm of possibility. Again, the Hurricane Center tapers it off just below major hurricane strength, but it's really a technicality between 95 knots and 96 knots, to be honest with you. But there you can see our developing tropical depression here in the central Atlantic basin, definitely looking a little bit more interesting than it has. Now, there's another view of it you can see here, and look at this very nasty wave moving off Africa. If this is Danielle, could this be Earl? Well, that's what a lot of the model guidance, like I just showed you, are saying. So we'll see if this does become it. It does appear to have a little bit more of a northerly component to its track. So if it does develop, it could be a brief tropical storm. But if it does move further south, like the Canadian model shows, it could also become a powerful hurricane. Finally, I wanted to show we have two depressions in the eastern Pacific. One I'm not going to mention is dying off screen. We do have a new one. This is 9E. It's at 13.9 north, 93.2 west, winds 30, gusting to 40. Pressure 1,007 millibars, is moving west at 2, so barely moving. It is forecast to become a tropical storm and then another hurricane by Monday. We should have two hurricanes, one in the Atlantic, one in the Pacific. And then parallel the coast of Mexico, we do have tropical storm watches and warnings due to the fact that this is so close to the coastline that you don't want to take a chance at this quickly becoming a strong hurricane and then making landfall with people being caught off guard. It is expected to become a tropical storm not that long from right now and become a tropical storm in a few hours and then eventually a hurricane, and it will be named Frank, and Frank will likely parallel the coastline, but as of right now you can see very, very favorable, especially with that outflow here taking shape. Look at the way it's all pools together like a magnet. It's always interesting to see systems do that. It's not even fanning out as much as just kind of pooling itself together there. The center, of course, developing right in here, has good outflow, especially off to the south and southwest. Northern outflow is a little impeded, but once it gets that going, it should have no problem becoming Hurricane Frank over the next several days. And again, taking an agonizingly slow track west. Could it make landfall? It is possible, but even if it doesn't, definitely high swells and heavy rainfall are in the cards for that area near the Gulf of Tehuantepec. That'll do it for the Tropical Update. I'm Mike Naso. I'll see you next time.